cracking into the Bible's mysteries, Genesis. That's what I'm all about doing right here, okay? I'm not a Christian. What I see is something else structured in here, and I'm approaching it really just philosophically. And I'm analyzing it to the nth degree. I'm really looking at things at a deep level and using the computer as a memory to find something that's very deep that we can't see if we don't have it memorized in this manner, and we don't. So there's something in there that we're carrying that we don't access it. And so that's what this is about. But the whole video I did recently about the, how is it that a dad dies inside of his son? And the son was already dead to begin with. So you look at that and go, oh, okay, there's something really weird going on here. And if anybody pays attention enough to stuff like that, I mean, what do you do to answer that question? Do you just glaze over it or shrug or something? There's weird stuff going on. If we analyze it, we'll see that there's a purpose in that. And it's all part of a process of interpretation that is actually common throughout the entire world. So what I'm going to do, my name is Dan Paulson, welcome to the video. What I'm going to do is go ahead and analyze that verse about the Son and the Father and how the Father dies inside the Son and how we actually crack these things. There's a certain procedure that we use. It's fairly big, so buckle up. This is how we interpret that verse. All right, what I've done is copied and pasted chapter 11 from the King James Version right here into a document. And right here highlighted in green, this is the Babel story. I'm going to say this is very original. This is old. Then it moves into there's a couple of places on a template that would be time goes by. There's lineages going on. There's two lineages here. These are the generations of Shem, and now these are the generations of Terah. Now, these two lineages are not the same. They don't look the same. They're not the same style. They're not the same author. They weren't put in at the same time. This one is all about numbers. This is building a numbering grid that's going to come into play as the religion grows. They're going to be maintaining something here, but you know what? If you're careful and you pick through this stuff, it shows you what it's doing. It tattletales on itself. Yeah. Okay, so we see all the hundreds, the 2, 500, 5. Do you recognize these numbers? These are numbers that I'm pulling that I'm calling analogs that continue to appear, and they're going to show up all throughout Abrahamic material. 5, 30, 3, 400, 30, 400, 3, 4, 30. Do you recognize these numbers? 37, 200, 20, 30. All right, then we get down here. Now, these are the generations of Terah. The only number is down here. This was probably added in the 205 years. It's part of the grid. Terah died in Haran. That's where the father died. But this is the part right here that would also be old. So I look at it this way. I would see it as this used to flow from, therefore the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. That it originally went then to here. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot. And we've got Abram, Nahor, Sarai. All the elements that we need are showing up here. This was unnecessary. This is creating numbers, or an analog pool. What we're looking at down here, though, is something that would be very old and very original. What I want to do is read this right here. What we see is the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram. So here's the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Or Haran, I don't know how to pronounce that. But so we have Terah, the father. Let's do this here. I'm just going to say, I'll make it dad quicker. And Haran, son. All right, and Haran died, so son died before father Terah. I'll just put dad. I don't know, we don't need it. In the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took the wives, and Aaron of Sarai. No. Okay, so, the daughter of Haran, Milcah, the daughter of Haran. Okay, so that's fine. So we're going to have, So this is weird. Haran died before his father so Haran died, but then later we've got a name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran. So what does that mean? That would imply that Haran must have lived in the land of his nativity in the Ur of the Chaldees long enough to start having offspring. You would have to say, yeah, that's got to be the case. If you're trying to read it literally. We're not going to. We're just going to go through and find the problems with it. All right, now we've got this very conspicuous transition of something as we continue to read. Sarai being barren and had no child was a good thing. We'll see as we get into that why that's so. It's a pure state, inner being. Anyway, that's going to be further into the video. But let's see what happens here. And Terah, so Dad, took Abram, his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, son of, and Sarai, daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Okay, so all of a sudden it went from the son of Haran, which was a person, to Haran, which is a land. What just happened right there? And then, of course, died in son, so we know then that somehow something transitioned. He didn't die in his son. He died in the land. So in order to make this work, first of all, we have to set some things up. There's a way that these stories mean something, and those are analogs being used, but they go into a very specific location in the mind. There's something going on in the background that we have to understand first before we can interpret what that means. And, before I go on, if you don't know my work, this is going to be starkly, very mental interactive, psychological. It's not going to be anything supernatural. What I'm seeing here is that we are flowing in a collective, and that there is something bigger. I don't know what it is, but we do emerge from something, and we flow in a collective based on the nature of the quality of our memories and how we continue to hold them. And that this story is about going back and changing the way those memories are, so that our flow in life changes and improves and becomes better. And you know what? I should say that in a bigger scope, not everybody needs to take this journey to feel enlightenment. Not everybody needs to do this. But the journey itself is for a healing process. So that doesn't mean you have to do this. This is for those who say, I'm hurt, I've got a problem, it continues to act out, I know how to address it. I don't want to sit here and meditate through it or kundalini my way around it or something like that. I want to just go to the seed and pull it right out. I got a memory in a way that I think about it. And if I change the way I think about it, it ceases to be that way. It's the changing the emotional state of the memory is really, if you successfully forgive somebody, that's what's happened. The reason we forgive people and go, yeah, I forgive them, but I still hate them and never want to see them and all that kind of stuff. It's because at the base level of our brain, that change it hasn't made. We are still being affected by it. You must change what is up here. And most people aren't going to do that. They don't want to face it. It's too hard. That's why it's, yeah, it's not many people are going to do this. That's what we're looking for here. So be ready for that. If you want some magic or, the giants are there or the Nephilim were true and all that kind of stuff, those are mental concepts. None of them are physical. They have a place on the template. Those are the enemies within. The skeletons in the closet, the stuff that acts out. The stories are going to be holding those things. They're not real in the physical world. They're metaphorically created as representations of aspects of our mind. I'm going there with it. If you're ready for that, let's go. Before I start getting into the detail, just as an overview, what we're getting into here is that this story is something you can read. It has some sort of societal impact. But at the deeper level, if you can get there, people that would be initiates at some point in time would have a certain knowledge that they could interpret this. They knew how it was made. The story is made in a very specific way. If you see patterns, that's why I talk about the numbers. This stuff gets my attention, the patterns and the weird things in here. And I think that there's something going on that isn't quite right. And of course, at some point, it yields its secrets. But the the thing is this: if you can imagine, it's long ago, and this is your media. This is your entertainment. The memorized story, memorized so well that you would even know how many times nouns and verbs were repeated in the story. They lived continuously through these. Society's getting big. What do you do with thousands of people with nothing to do? What would we do? All right, you better... Yeah, okay, so the stories become something very important to society. At the same time, at any time anybody understands how the story works, they can close their mind and extract from these story parts steps along a path for self-healing. Consider it like a mental map to go back to your beginnings, but it's very secretly encoded in a way that there's multiple layers. And what we want to do is what we're doing here is trying to get to the very deepest layer, and that's a secret place. So what we have to do is kind of go through it, understand what they probably had going on, process it ourselves, and decide whether or not we think that that's true. And what I'm going to suggest is that in these stories, that all of the people are us. This entire thing plays out in our mind, which means then that all of these pieces and parts, the people, are facets of us and who we are in the most complex way. And we can see the big pieces at first, and then you can zoom in and see that there's incredible fine detail. It's almost like a Fibonacci story or something like that. It's very bizarre. Little stories making big stories that create bigger stories that continue to follow a pattern. It's if you see it, you'll go, oh my God. That's how it is with me. But I also know that it took me years of thought process to get there. And I don't think people have that time. I can point this out very quickly because I got it figured out. So if you want to do it, this is how you read the story. Okay, so first of all, we have to establish the mental hierarchy, because that is where the story plays out in the mind. And each of these have, if you look at the story, there's a hierarchy of people in the story. Those translate to a hierarchy of things in the mind. So let's talk about what those mind states are. All right, I've just made some general comments here off the top of my head, but I'll talk about them a little bit more if we need to. So what we have here is the higher awareness, the consciousness, the subconscious, the offspring, which are what we're holding in the subconscious, the nature of it, the memories, and what they are, whether they're good or bad. And then the flow of life as a result of the first four, the nature of and the alignment, the quality of. Okay, let's talk about each one in a little bit more detail. The higher awareness or higher self. This exists prior to our developing self-awareness. We live through this as children, happy and carefree. This is God in the stories, but God comes from a realm where all things we seek emerge from. The mental hidden stuff is there, not the physical and self-aware stuff. Let me describe that better. When we live life, power for good and bad comes from here. We are creating life. We have power to use as we choose. We don't know it. We may often choose poorly, but aren't self-aware enough to know that. And we connect emotionally to our judged experiences, and we come that while not knowing that. That's just living life normally, going off in life and living, having physical experience. From here, though, we hear things like, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Fits here in Jewish material. Or in the Tao Te Ching, it says, the Tao gives birth to all, is simply stated in the Tao Te Ching. So there's a couple of things going on. The higher awareness, first of all, let's discuss that in more detail. This is something, it's a mind state. We should have all had experience with this. Most people at some point in time in life find themselves with a lot of issues, or maybe not even a lot. There seems to be this phenomena that I haven't found anybody that hasn't experienced it yet in some form or at some time, where you wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and you can't get back to sleep and something is just bugging you. I don't know why it happens at that time. It's an evolutionary thing. That's when it's time to get up and I don't know what, maybe bad hunting time. I don't know. At any rate, we wake up at that time, but we find ourselves in these mental turmoils, and consciously we're having an experience that's through our memories or some unresolved conflict. But every once in a while, there will be a part of each of us that should, at some point in time, try to interrupt that with something that's very matter of fact and isn't connected to the emotional sense. When you feel it, if you can get into that experience right there, what it is something that's just saying, hey, let it go. There's nothing you can do tonight. It's not the one going, oh God, I got to do this and that, and I hate this, and it's something completely different. So we have different parts of us that we're experiencing in our consciousness, not knowing that that's what's happening. What we need to do when that happens is understand that that's the higher awareness. There's things popping around in here, but honestly, the consciousness has to be aware of it and is in the driver's seat on engaging that. The consciousness has to be the one that wakes up and realizes, I'm living through my memories right now. I need to drop that until I've got that resolved. I need to be aware that I'm doing that, and I need to engage the higher awareness so I'm not living through that emotional state right there. Okay, let me stop and just really dial this in. Think of this for yourself. You have to do this in your own head to make sense of it. Think of your own life when you have time and ponder your childhood. Ponder some time in your memory that you remember. Well, there's a point where you knew you were alive that you don't even have memory of it because you were too young. At that point in time, we're living happy and carefree through just a pure life force. At some point, but we're not aware of that. We're just living life happy and unaware. What we need to do for the brain to understand more is to now have life experiences. So that's what happens. We go off and we begin having life experiences, and as we do, we can begin to live through those. Once I know what a banana is and it's good, I can ask for that every day now. Oh, I couldn't do that before, now I can. And then I learn, oh, the grapes are good too. And then pretty soon I learn fruit, that expands and expands. But then other things come online as well, that we really begin having judged life experiences as well. And that as we're going along, we cease to live through that nebulous, I'm not even aware of anything, empty, pure self through the experiences and our memories and our judgments. And that those become parts of a filtration system in the mind that creates not only the way we perceive life, but the way that we continue to flow through life. The higher awareness is emerging. It's always there. It is always there. We just don't know it. We have to switch from living through our memories, through the bundle of memories, to this higher awareness. So that's what's important in the mind state part. Even though out here everything still comes from it, what we're really interested here is knowing that doesn't matter. What matters is we have to get to our higher awareness. If we get there, what it's doing is it's taking the consciousness is engaging that part of us. Now it has the mental capacity to comprehend. We didn't when we were kids. Now with our comprehensive ability, we can now go, oh yeah, from here I don't feel those things. This existed prior to me, prior to the memories that I'm now living through. I want to get rid of those memories now that I've developed my brain capacity to do so, let them go and live from this higher self now that I'm aware of that even being there. So there's a point in time where it's there all the time, but we lose our connection with it because we're just not aware of it. The higher awareness is that, but the conscious has to engage it. So are we clear on what the higher awareness is? Anytime you can get outside of yourself and look at yourself and go, you know what to do, you just won't do it. That right there is the higher awareness. The consciousness is engaging that, but what happens to the consciousness, unaware of that and full of fear, slips right back into the emotion. We're not living through, we're living through the emotion. I'll just put it that way and leave it at that. Anytime it's emerging, even if you're not thinking about it, it's still back there affecting your flow in life. It's still something that you're carrying that's pulling you down, even if you're not consciously aware of it. And then when you are consciously aware of it, how do you know what it's made out of? It creates turmoil, fear, shame, anger, hatred, all those things. If you can pull that from your memories, know that that's in your well. Yeah, that's poisoning your waters. Okay, let's go on and look at consciousness. All right, the consciousness. There's more to know, and it's important to understand this. The consciousness is going to be really in charge of everything. Even if the higher awareness has the power to heal, it cannot do it on its own. The higher awareness is not going to step in and elbow you out of the way and take over. The consciousness has to engage it. It's there, but the consciousness is in charge. We're the aware or unaware part of this equation. The consciousness drives the entire life experience while we are aware of that or unaware of it. We process experiences and then decide their emotional quality. The conscious feels life by what is either from outside, from our physical experiences, or it feels life through the emotional quality of stored memories. The conscious choices we have made are judgments, agreements, naming, etc. All analogs telling us we are living through our memories, but at first we're not aware of that. The conscious creates the third eye through accumulated perceptions. This is what we're living through. This is the third eye, not the pineal gland, which is used for sleep regulation. If you know what, you can work on the pineal gland and you'll have success, but if you want to know what is really going on, this is it right here. The third eye is is what you have become through your memories. Okay, the conscious creates the third eye through accumulated perception, then lives through its creation. This means we live through our life experiences and memories when we aren't consciously focused on our physical experiences, which is a result of our inner stored memories. We're living through the past. We're living through when we're feeling things and living life. We're living facing backwards. We're living experiencing the past. The conscious experiences the 5 physical senses from the physical realm and lightly experiences emotional fields, transmit and receive, like talk or listen. Only emotional fields we share with each other. We feel these through the central nervous system. We don't think feelings. We experience them physically with emotion. We feel them viscerally. Love doesn't feel like 2 + 2. The consciousness in Jewish stories gets all of the male roles. It's based in their societal hierarchy as well, so carries easy and makes sense. The man, good or bad aspects, is in charge of the female, who is going to be the subservient, or sometimes bad or sinful, subconscious mind. So we're using the conscious now. The conscious makes all the choices and decides what to do. We don't know that at first. We're unaware. We're just experiencing life. This is difficult. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I got raped. I got molested. I got beat. What are you talking about? Yeah, that's the problem right there. That's why it's called the warrior's path, is what the name of it is. You gotta say, I'm living through these. Yeah, they happen. Yeah, they suck. But guess what? You're living through them. Yeah, they happen. Yeah, they suck. You're living through them. At some point you go, son of a, okay, I have to do something to heal this somehow so that I don't experience the turmoil of it anymore. I have to change somehow. I've got to that forgiveness has to happen, whatever that takes. It might be personal. It might be with somebody, making restitutions or whatever. Somehow letting somebody off the hook. Whatever it is that hurts you. It's personal. It's personal at this point. Okay. And then the conscious also, however, I mean, there's times things come into your mind that you're like, whoa, where did that come from? This is that field where we're getting sensations from. We understand and know things, and our own mind is plugging in answers. We get together in groups and we, get together with an emotional uprising. We experiencing highs or lows that we can't get to on our own, but we can experience those in groups. We know that that's happening. And how do we feel that? How do we sense that? It's a visceral thing. Well, it's got to be the central nervous system. But we also hear things sometimes and it seems magical because it comes in through the back door. But anyway, okay, so that is important to understand that consciousness is really creating through all of these perceptions what our reality is going to be, what we're going to continue to live through in that third eye. You're always living through the third eye. Question is, what's the quality of it? It's like the Tao. People ask, how do I get in the Tao? Oh, you're in the Tao. The question is, what's the quality of the Tao? All right, the third eye is the same thing. Jesus' eye to clear the mode out of is the same thing. If all of these are in common, what are they? Are they all teaching a pineal gland? No, they're not. That's a recent construct. But we're always living through the third eye. The third eye is the bundle of perceptions that we're experiencing. The difference is this. Number one, whether or not it's positive or negative experience. And number two, whether we are aware of that or not aware of that. Now, there's some people that have nothing to clear out of their third eye that would probably one day say, wow, I'm living attached to everything. And if I let go and I live from up here, I suddenly feel incredibly elevated. I think that that's possible. People that say, I now cleared out my pineal gland, that basically that's what happened. They just became aware of the fact that they can let go of the physical and look at it from a detached perspective is what's really happening. So I want to go on record as saying, yeah, I do believe that there is an effect there. But, there's more to it than that. That honestly, the third eye that you're always living through the third eye. It depends on the quality of it. In the same way that we're always living in the graces of God, but what are they, good or bad graces of God? We're always living in the Tao, no matter what. Is it good or a bad flow in the Tao? It's the same thing here. We're always living through the third eye, which is the bundle of perceptions. We're always having a life experience based on the nature of what is here. And that's what the third eye is. And that third eye is not something you just open or close. Sometimes you got to put some Visine in there. Okay, on to the subconscious. This is where all of the female roles are. The subconscious is a product of our decisions and is our bundle of memories that we begin to live through as we try to escape and live life, all the while feeling free from inner suffering and mental turmoil. This is where the turmoil comes from. The bundle of experiences, called towers or cities, evil kingdoms, or even the earth to be destroyed. That's all about this bundle of life experience and judgments. The agreements, what we have named from the conscious experience, continues to reside in here. It is now a constant companion when we do not resolve it. We made it from the power we are given, and it gets stronger as we continue to mentally focus on it in a manner that is of the hurt nature of it. We are fertilizing emotion with more of the same, and it will grow bigger. Okay, so everybody know that I'll stay away from the translation and what it is, cities and all earth, all that kind of stuff. Right here, what we have is basically we didn't have a subconscious when we started. That wasn't there. The subconscious can also be called the third eye. Really, it is the nature. That's it right there. It is the quality of it. Now, in some teachings, like when the flood happened, it was destroy that entire thing and start over. That would have closely resembled the Babylonian epic, one destruction and one start over again. However, it doesn't really work on the template. There's no way to really, well, perhaps there is. There could be people that can turn inward, that can heal, but they don't have maybe significant issues. I don't know. It's probably not likely that you're just going to let go of everything unless what you have holding on to. Yeah. You know, me, I had a lot of stuff that continued to cause problems in life that I couldn't just let go of and ignore. That's what this was here, how to go look at that stuff and go, yeah, when I remember that, I just really hate it. It's of that nature right there. How to address it in such a way that it's like, okay, now it's not there anymore. I had to do that. That's what this is for. If you don't have to do it, it won't make any sense to you. Okay, the subconscious is where all of that resides. And some material will have you destroy, like in the Babylonian creation myth, Tiamat had to be completely destroyed and started over again. Here we had in Genesis, the earth was corrupt and needed to be destroyed and start over again. But really, what we have in life is a sequence of things moving along. We have to go back and get a number of things. There's not just one issue that we have or one forgiveness that covers all. If you can look in and see certain things that are unresolved, you see that just saying, I'm going to let it all go, does not resolve those things. You have to go resolve those things if they don't resolve. And that's a personal thing. You have to visit it in your own mind. Pull it up and see what it makes you feel like. That's how you measure the quality of it. You use the emotions to determine what it's like. If you don't like looking at it, yeah, there you go. That's it. Okay, next we have offspring. Okay, that's an obvious one, isn't it? The offspring, this depends on the material. The subconscious holds all of the memories, but the memories have individual lives. Offspring from the mother is analogous to flowers from the garden. What do we have planted in our minds? Gardens, etc. Yeah, there's many things in there. Okay, so offspring, we got that. Those are individual things that might have to be resolved, and maybe not. I mean, offspring could also be love and joy and good memories and things like that. There's both in there. We don't resolve the good stuff. That doesn't bother us. We resolve the stuff that hurts us. Which brings us to the last one, the flow of life in the collective as a result of the alignment of the first four. We will live our life experiences based on where we emerge from and what we continue to hold in our general emotional state. And that general emotional state is made up from a bunch of individual memories and the way we feel about them. The better the feelings, the better the flow. We flow in the Tao. We live in the graces of God in Abrahamic material. How do we improve the graces of God in Jesus material? You go to the altar to leave a gift, then you remember you have aught against your brother. Go resolve it first. Go take care of things. And then it happens automatically. The flow changes automatically. Your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret. Okay, so you got the 5 mental hierarchy. Now, there's another layer altogether. You go, well, there's a lot of men and a lot of women in there. How the hell do you explain that? Okay, so it gets tricky. When we live life, we look at it and go, it's been a linear progression, but it really hasn't been. If you look at it, it's like I was a child once. I was an innocent child and I was this person. And then I began to have this kind of a curiosity and I became this person. And then I went to school and learned this and I became this person. And then I had these experiences and accumulated that and began to divide and I became this person. What they're doing is slicing up people. And not only that, within each one of them, there's divisions. Cain and Abel are not at 2 different times. They're at the same times. Those are simultaneous divisions, the conflict that we have within. So all of those become very complicated parts in a time and a place where this was so big to them that it is what they did. What do you do? What is the biggest thing to you in your life? Understand that an entire population had this as their media. This was their iPhones. Thousands upon thousands, perhaps millions of people doing what? Society is not like we have it. There isn't media. This would serve as that. The mind is a very complicated thing, and these stories are very complicated. We're not looking at them. Okay, so as we get into these then, that's what's happening. As we turn inward, when we look in here, the Father and the Son, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see iterations of ourself and slices over time. Taking that idea into account, let's go do some modifications to the text from the Bible and see what it sounds like. All right, switching back to it here, I've done some modifications to it just to try to speed things up. And what we see here is, right at the beginning, this is the right one? Yeah, okay. These are the generations of Terah, Terah 9. Now, I've got some numbers in here that if you follow my work, they come from another chart. They're telling me things. This is part of the numbering system and sequence that's going on in the background that I use the term tattletale. What they're doing is repeating. They create a grid of good and bad numbers, pools, and then they repeat the names that amount of times to tell us whether they're good or bad. We see Abram doesn't look good, does it? Abram is not good. 6 and 59 are not from the list of good items. But Abram is going to move on to become Abraham and do something different. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that here. It just gets way too deep. But it gives me an idea of how to search this. I know that Haran, it's said 8 times here in this chapter, which is not good. 13, which is not good. That's one number over 12. 8 is one advance past day 7. 13 is one advance past day 12. So this kind of just gets us going here with the Terah and the Haran. Terah's not a good element, and Haran's not a good element. But these are us. What this represents is a part of myself at one point in time that was also thinking of other things and other ideas. I was going to continue to split and divide. These are the branches of my former self, including Haran. Haran will be a future part of me, but seems to be primarily used as a story element. It will not remain for long, but is used to create pure Sarai and Milcah. They're going to be story elements. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity. That's where he was born in, Ur of the Chaldees. All right, what I have learned is that their numbering grid, their tattletale grid that's going to show me what's going on is going to tell me whether or not that Ur of the Chaldees is on the 3-7 grid or not. So I'm going to go to Genesis. I'm going to search for it. I know it's going to pop up. Ur of the Yeah, it's on the 3-7 grid, isn't it? So that's a good place right there. So right here then, what we can say back over here on my modified one, the Chaldees is number 3 on the 3-7 grid. 3 times it's been repeated in Genesis. It's a good place. It's a pure place. Okay, so this is not physical death. The Chaldees represents an early mental location analogous to Eden. Dying there means we have left it behind. That was our pure child self that is no more. Then we've got our Abram, Nahor took wives, Abram, Sarai, did a variety of things. They're creating right here story branches. These people are going to show up later. But Sarai was barren. She had no children. 3:17, both from our pure list of good things. And herself was pure to start with. No later iterations begun yet, and nothing named. Pure state like in the Garden of Eden. This would be like Eve prior to first sin. This is a repeating sequence that doesn't look like it. Sarai is a pure state like Eve was a pure state. And Terah took Abram and Lot, son of Haran. They went all forth with them from the good location. They left Eden. They left the the Chaldees into the land of Canaan and came into Haran land and dwelt there. So they went from a good place to a bad place. That's like first sin just happened. Early iteration of self, Terah, with all my apparent qualities at that time, leave purity behind. Leaving the Chaldees is analogous to leaving Eden. There's just more than Adam and Eve packed in. Dwelling in Haran means we are living in a bad state of being. There's a part of our life where, life is just not okay anymore. And you know what? I may very well be wrong on that, or not complete. That would be a part of it. But I think it even becomes bigger that at this point in time, living in Haran would be the same as just living life unaware. You're just living your day-to-day existence, not aware that you're accumulating life based on your judgments and the things that are going on. So that living in Haran would be that, living life blindly, accumulating things as time goes on. And then what we get here, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Okay, the numbers 2 and 500 here at the end are both from the analog list, and this closes out this chapter of the book as well as this stage of our life. This is a very distinct chapter end right here. When we move into 12, we're going to start with Abram and Sarai. That's going to start a new chapter. So this is a numbering system closing out this analog grid, as well as the stages of our life. Terah dying in Haran represents a stage of our life that is over and has died off to a part of our past. Think of your own life and when you were a different person with respect to beliefs and state of awareness, how you felt, how you acted, all of that. These represent what we were at one time, but are no more. We learn better. We become something different. We age, we mature. In the same manner, Terah as well as Haran have died off, but Abram, Sarai, Milcah, Nahor, and maybe more emerge from here. This stage of our life is over, but the story is intended to cause branching and networking to create a larger story network for a growing population. Okay, does that make sense? We started out pure, had some qualities, left it behind, and we died to ourselves. And we've moved on, and we're going to become something different. This is just us moving along in the stages of life. And I talk about the stark repetition of a pattern in there that's very difficult to see. And that's kind of it right here. As we get into the Abram and Sarai story, what we're going to see is that God puts Abram, he's there long enough to set things up. He talks to Abram long enough to get them underway, but then Abram and Sarai find themselves in Canaan in a land that is in a famine. And at that point in time, God is gone, just disappears. Why would that happen? If you were to look at earlier on, as we get through Genesis and we get down through Cain and Abel, we're going to find the same thing happen. God just kind of disappears. Life goes on. People, go off and do their thing. They live normal life. At some point, life becomes corrupted. There's a lineage up there, but at some point in time, life gets corrupted and God comes back to destroy everything. It's at that time men begin to invoke the word of God. So where was God that entire time? When we get to Abram and Sarai, same thing happens. It disappears until after there's a problem. Where God came back when it was time to destroy the world, God comes back after Abram and Sarai have already been kicked out of Eden because They lied and told Pharaoh. Yeah. Okay, so that's a big story. The element there that we're looking at is, where was God? Why did God disappear during that time frame? And what we're looking at throughout this material is this idea that when we're young, God is there, and you're starting off in this pure place that's devoid of things. But then life goes on and God disappears. The higher awareness goes away. We live life, and when it's time to purify things, that's when we consciously are beginning to reinvoke the higher awareness and go, oh, I see what happened. Okay, so this is a pathway, when you understand it, that gets us right there. How does that sound? All right, hope that was fun and interesting. And you know what? Without having it memorized, we're not going to access this. I can see now how deep this is, that people today are not going to access it. And that's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. It doesn't say on the inside what it says on the outside. All right. See you in the next video.